Good evening, Oh god.
What?
Uh, that's deeply annoying. Um.
What's
Oh, for
happened?
fuck's sake.
If anyone's watching, hi.
Hi, everyone. OBS has decided to murder, uh, Chris's camera. So, yay. Oh,
Hi.
it's because I changed the thing. It's because I changed the thing. One moment, please. We're gonna do some technical difficulties. Whee!
Sounds about right.
See, there's a Chris.
Hi. I'm a little dimly lit, and I apologize for that.
Well, it is thematic because, brother dear, we are talking, of course, about Blades in the Dark.
Blades in the dark.
So we've already screwed up the intro I had planned, which was going to be us talking and then a reveal of the thing. But fuck it.
Much fuck it.
Yeah, that doesn't work either. Okay. Yep, fine. Fuck it.
Fuck it, we ballin'.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Hello. Yada yada yada. We are here to talk about Blades in the Dark, or more specifically, Chris is here to talk to us about Blades in the Dark, as it is a system very close and dear to his heart.
Hey, Jay.
Yeah?
You know how we're so prepared to talk about Blades in the Dark today?
Uh-huh.
Could you, in a way that doesn't reveal any of your personal information to the stream, kindly go into your email and get a 6-digit code so that I can log into Steam?
Fucking, why do you need to log into Steam?
To moderate the chat.
You mean log into Twitch?
Twitch? I don't know what I'm talking about. The thing that we're streaming on. A platform of some kind.
Please hold, everybody. Yes. I'm just gonna... Whoop. I'm just gonna get rid of that so nobody can see what the fuck we're doing. Fuck's sake.
So, yeah. The original plan was that I was going to make a presentation. I was going to host the stream today. And then I didn't make a presentation in time. And then my wife is currently ill, so I had to go pick up the dog today, which took up the time I was going to spend today putting together some presentation things, which meant I then arrived late and was eating food. And then my PC froze after I turned it on to start us in the whole streaming thing. And now we are here doing our level best. So kindly bear with us, everybody. We appreciate your kindness and compassion / ridicule. So, yeah. Good times.
Yep. Yeah, I'll get to that after the stream, Eve Jeff, don't worry. But yes, long-time viewers might recognize this format from when I introduced and gave us a quick run-through of City of Mist. We're basically doing that again, but with Blades in the Dark.
Yeah.
So Chris is going to take us through the system, the setting, kind of the general feel of the game, and, you know, maybe some, like, what makes it cool and what makes it interesting.
That's the game plan.
That's the fucking plan at any rate.
If it works, we will see.
God, I hope so.
I know. Well, Jay's going to ask me some questions, and that'll buy time.
Yes. So, Chris.
Hi.
What is Blades in the Dark?
Well, Jonathan, Blades in the Dark is a TTRPG. So, the thing with Blades in the Dark, I think the defining things about Blades in the Dark that sets it apart from other systems are twofold. Obviously, like any system, it has as much complexity as you want to put into it. Really. But the two things I like the most about Blades in the Dark are well, no, we're not talking about the things that I like the most. We'll get into that. But the things that define it are the setting and the risk. So the setting for Blades in the Dark, no matter what you do, they obviously have their own world, Duskfall, and the kind of theming around it is very kind of Gothic Victoriana, with spirits loose in the world, and crime and violence. But the key thing about that setting, no matter whether you have it in their city of Duskfall or you create your own world, as I've done because I'm a masochist, is that it is a sealed city. Wherever you set your Blades in the Dark campaign is meant to be a pressure cooker. There is no escape from it, so the heat builds and builds and builds until it explodes. That is the key part of the setting. You know, like you could easily run a Blades in the Dark campaign where no one is a criminal if you wanted to. It would be a bit weird. It's meant to be about criminals. You are meant to be a criminal gang, but the point here is that you could be aristocrats, you could be gamblers, you could be soldiers of fortune, you could be marauders, bandits, bounty hunters, you could be viscounts, you could be anybody in Blades in the Dark. But whoever you are in a sealed system. And that system is building to eruption. And that's, I think, a really wonderful way as a dungeon master of building a campaign in a world. You know, it's not as intimidating, I think, as trying to think of like a high fantasy D&D setting. You know, it's not as traditional as Demon King in the Mountain. It's not as, you know, it's a very self-contained, self-involved world. So everything that the players do has to have consequence. You know, like in a D&D campaign, it can have consequence, and a lot of DMs like to make it have consequence. But in Blades in the Dark, it must have consequence. Not dissimilar, I think, to City of Mist, where, you know, everything is so layered in together on itself, and particularly the way that you ran the City of Mist campaign that we played. But very specifically, there are forces working, and part of the mechanics of the system are things happening in and around your group. So we have downtime actions, and we have heat, and we have different factions building up different power. There's whole kind of things about claiming territory and kind of struggling for dominance in the city, which is all built into the mechanics of the game, with this idea of this building to this eruption, as everything just kind of layers on itself. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's a great way to build a system, and it's unlike, even though there's similarities to City of Mist, it is in and of itself unlike any other system that we've discussed or that I've come across, and I really like that. I'm sure there are others like it, but I like this one.
I very much agree with you that Blades in the Dark has that kind of closed-in pressure cooker feeling a lot more than something like City of Mist, which is also to itself contained within one singular city. But I think that's just because the vibes are very, very different. Whereas in City of Mist, you are heroes, you are echoes of legend. In Blades in the Dark, you are criminals trying to make a buck.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked a lot about kind of the vibe and the style. Can you give us some... Can you think of any, like, movies or books or video games that kind of have a similar vibe to the traditional world of Blades in the Dark?
I actually think one of the best kind of comparisons to something like Blades in the Dark would be something like the Dishonored series.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very much.
Again, it's very much the same. It's the same steampunk Victoriana spirit ghost, everything's a bit grim type of thing, and it's very self-contained, and it's again building within a small world to an explosion. It's very much of that ilk, I think. But I also think there's lots of other ways to go about that. For my campaign specifically, I took a huge amount of inspiration from the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo, which are a wonderful set of books that I love. Similarly, for the setting, I took a lot of inspiration from a visit to Amsterdam in January. Vary and I went on a long weekend to Amsterdam with some friends, and it's a beautiful city. And I think the way that it's structured in that kind of like small European trade city type of way really lends itself to this kind of like closed in type of structure, particularly because the architecture in Amsterdam, actually, a lot of the buildings, rather than being kind of like big, fat, wide, detached houses, as you might get in somewhere like Glasgow, where, kind of like the wealth kind of grew up around the fringes of the industrialization. It hadn't kind of like built itself up beforehand. All of the houses, a lot of the houses, certainly in central Amsterdam, are all thin and deep. So like everything's like, like a room wide, but like 2-3 rooms deep. Which was fascinating to kind of witness, very different from anything in Scotland. And again, that combined with the canals and the narrow streets, it evokes a lot of that kind of, Victoriana feeling. Venice as well very much has that, like closed in narrow streets, turn a corner, you could be anywhere type of feeling. And I love that.
I would recommend you read The Lies of Locke Lamora. I think you would very much get a huge kick out of the vibes for it.
If it weren't for the fact that it never finished, yes, I would. But I don't want to disappoint my life.
Cuts deep, man. We will get the Thorn of Emberlane one day. Probably the day after we get the Doors of Stone. It'll happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen. It'll happen, man.
Patrick Rothfuss hasn't died. He will publish another
It'll
book.
happen one day, please. Right. So, Blades in the Dark is, that very kind of gothic Victoriana steampunk feeling to it. But you mentioned ghosts and spirits.
I did.
So we're not talking about like gritty kind of historical role playing here. There's still an element of fantasy.
Yes, absolutely. It's I'm reminded briefly of there was an anime that I watched last year that I really enjoyed, but like clearly wasn't. It clearly never got picked up by anyone, and I know exactly why it didn't. Like you watch it and you're like, I can see why no one picked this up, but it's got a really stupid name like Corpse Murder Party or something. But it's a detective anime about a disembodied head. Could be.
Which was a series of quite successful visual novels.
The detective is a head. Oh, I mean, I think the visual novels are probably great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a head and her ogre bodyguard going and interacting with Sherlock Holmes and Arsène Lupin and Frankenstein. The bad guy is Moriarty.
Okay.
Go figure, There's a whole bit about like a village of werewolves and how they've been framed. It's great. The very first case is a vampire family in Germany, and someone murdered the mother figure within the family, and the detective has to figure out who the killer was. I had a wonderful time with it. It's very silly. And again, Blades in the Dark similarly has the opportunity to be very silly, which I think is important. Mine might not be so silly, but I'm a silly person. We'll see.
I was gonna say that sounds like that does sound like an anime of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes, and again, that's the same type of space Blades in the Dark is playing in. Is the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. You know, it's because that Victoriana era and style, largely thanks to the first ever science fiction novel, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's like this is where a lot of this influence comes from and why the influence is so strong in a lot of parts of culture. And I think as well, if you're gonna have a kind of gritty or horror end to steampunk, it's nice to blend in those supernatural roots from Frankenstein, from Dracula, from kind of all of these types of things.
Yeah, proper gothic horror,
Jekyll and Hyde, etc.
So yeah, we're talking deep fogs, gas lamps. Jack the Ripper could be hiding around every corner, that kind of thing.
Exactly, and that's the vibe certainly in the book, and the kind of the setting as it is portrayed, which I enjoy.
Remember, kids, if you can buy the book for the TTRPG, do support the creators.
Yes, support people. Support, because sad tangent. One of the things I really wanted to do, and one of the reasons I really wanted to run this on the stream, a Blades in the Dark campaign, aside from really enjoying the setting and the system, is that there was a company called One More Multiverse who had digital world, a virtual tabletop place for Blades in the Dark to live, which had it had the city of Duskfall, and you could build your characters and you could move through it, and lots of pre-made assets for GMs to play with. A really, really cool piece of software, and sadly they went out of business.
That is a shame.
It is a shame.
If you do want to buy the book, it is published by a company called Evil Hat Productions, and was largely written by a man named John Harper. I would highly recommend looking it up and buying a copy either of the PDF or the book, because it's a good book.
Yep, and they've got expansions. They've got a bunch of fan creations that they've got available for free as well off their website. It seems it's a really good community. Please do support them. But coming back to your question about ghosts, which I went on a whole tangent about, in Blades in the Dark, as written, the idea is that in the sealed city of Duskfall, the city is sealed in basically by spirits. Ghosts are very much a presence. Ghosts are dangerous. One of the risks of killing people in Blades in the Dark is that when people die, ghosts happen. And it becomes quite dangerous.
People die if they are killed?
People die when they are killed. Oh man. What we were watching the other day, and it had a line that was nearly as good as that, and I fucking loved it. People die when they are killed. Is that not from a Fates anime?
Fate Stay Night, yeah. It's I think one of the early subs of Fate Stay Night.
Which is fucking wild, because what I didn't realize, of course, is that the Fate series started as a fucking eroge.
Let's not go over Fate.
We're not doing the Fates timeline, but to go like porn of historical figures,
yep,
from across wherever the fuck, to appallingly dubbed anime that wasn't 4Kids' fault, to sprawling wasteland of like high concept fantasy games and series is just a wild through line to me.
Yeah. But also the porn thing makes sense. I've seen those character designs.
Valid.
Anywho,
so
ghosts.
Ghosts. What was I talking about? Ghosts. I'm talking about ghosts.
Risks of killing people is the ghosts will happen.
In the world, one of the reasons that the city of Duskfall is sealed is that venturing out with the city risks basically being murdered by ghosts. One of the few ways in the lore that people do actually venture out into the world is across the Ghost Sea to hunt giant leviathans for their blood and meat and bones and all other parts of them, which is basically how they have, you know, kind of flammable oil and working
very dishonored.
Anything that would be oil driven or petroleum based, I suppose, in the kind of base world of Duskfall is harvested from the leviathans. And it also gives you an opportunity to have exploding barrels, because, you know, why the fuck not? It's a good time. So that's, in terms of the setting, and that's very much a part of it, and again, important to harken back to those classic kind of Victorian horror novels, because there's always an aspect of the supernatural. So that's that. It's a core part of the setting, and also in some of the classes. And this is a really cool thing about Blades in the Dark, that again, a lot of other systems that don't have as much risk to the player baked into the mechanics. So, alluding to this, Blades in the Dark is a D6 system. You get to roll a number of D6 equal to your stat and your bonuses, and you take the highest roll. A 6 is a perfect success. Anything less than a 6 has a complication. So like a 4 or 5 is a partial success. A 1 to 3 is a straight up failure. So Blades in the Dark, by definition, the majority of times you are going to take some penalty for anything you do that you have to roll for. And that is important. And you mitigate these things by taking stress, risking harm, risking trauma, making devil's bargains, and, you know, kind of all of these types of things. This is all a system where the player is meant to constantly be at risk. There is never a point in Blades in the Dark where you are a god. Like, you're not, there is no equivalent to, you know, like a level 20 D&D character in Blades in the Dark. It doesn't happen. All right, even if you're rolling 5d6, you know, like, if you don't get a 6, you're gonna be taking some penalty for anything you do. And partly because of that, there are a group of supernatural options for when you die in Blades in the Dark. So, Blades in the Dark, you obviously, as with anything, you've got a bunch of different character sheets and options available, you know, which is great. So, you know, go to the contents page. Tell me so I can break it down for you. So, you know, it's fucking look at everything. Score the crew. Yeah, so that's because you're on the wrong page, Chris. So you've got cutters, who are your fighter type, kind of archetype. Hounds, who are more of a kind of ranger, tracker. Again, this is generalizing. You could be a cutter who, does a different kind of fighting. You can be a hound. You don't have to be a bounty hunter if you're a hound. There's all kinds of options for that. Thank you, Jay, for banning that person. Leeches are more kind of tech based. They're inventors, and they work in what this game terms as Sparkcraft, which is our age of inventions. Edison discovering the light bulb, and for most people, Teslaing all over the place in all the ways that Tesla never really Teslaed.
The way that people think Tesla'd.
Yeah, the way that movies would have us believe Tesla'd.
The way that David Bowie as Tesla'd.
Indeed, exactly so. Lurks, who are hiding in the shadows, are kind of silent spy types. Slides, who are our social interactors. Spiders, who are kind of a mix of lots of different things.
Kind of your masterminds.
I feel like spiders are kind of hard to define. They're like a jack of all trades.
Spiders have felt a lot like they're designed to be kind of masterminds, pulling the strings and like orchestrating a lot of things, but not necessarily being in the middle of the grift.
But they also have a bunch of abilities that can absolutely just put them in the middle of stuff. Yeah. And they can do social deception, they can do spying, they can do a bunch of stuff the other people can. And then we have our whispers, who are spooky. They are overtly the occult part of the group. Now, those are the places you can start. If you die, though, you become a ghost, as we've already established. You are not immune to this. Anyone who dies in Blades in the Dark becomes a ghost. The player does too. But as a ghost you have a character sheet. And from being a ghost, you can then transition into being one of two things. So you can have your ghost implanted into a mechanical golem, a la our Sparkcraft people, and you become a hull. Or you can have your ghost implanted into a dead body and become a vampire. And those are both completely viable options for having died in Blades in the Dark. So your character can keep going and you have a whole journey around it. Which I just think is cool as fuck.
Even in death, you are not free from the stress and trauma of Blades in the Dark.
Correct. And again, I think that's coming back to your very first question, the things that I think define Blades in the Dark. This is the other end of it. So there's that sealed city thing, and then there is the constant risk. And it's not kobolds in a trench coat or anything like that, or I can't remember what the name of that kobolds game was that we looked at. Kobolds Ate My Baby. From your Kobolds Ate My Baby, where every kobold is disposable and you're just constantly coming up as, Fangfur Jr., Fangfur Jr.'s brother, Fangfur Jr.'s great lost uncle, and continuing that way. You are constantly at risk. You have to do your best to mitigate that risk. You are quite likely going to die. And when you die, you can keep going because of that constant risk. Blades in the Dark is a game that rewards bold and outrageous plans, but it also punishes you harshly when you fuck it up. You can't be stupid, but you can be daring.
Well, this is the thing that is very interesting about Blades in the Dark, that I have found, is that it seems to take, while it is very gothic Victoriana, kind of steampunk, and very dark and gritty kind of feeling, it does take a lot of inspiration from things like Leverage and Ocean's 11, big heist feelings. which includes one of its signature mechanics.
Indeed. The heist. Which is actually just its whole structure. Yeah, in terms of the way the Blades in the Dark plays, the structure is that of a heist.
Yeah.
Which is great. Because we've talked about all of this setting. We've talked about, we've briefly touched on the different archetypes and characters you can have within your gang. We've mentioned that you are criminals in this setting. That is the general idea. You don't have to be, but that is the general idea, is you are a band of criminals. But the structure of the game itself is a heist. It is broken into your planning phase, the heist itself, and your downtime afterwards. That is the way that it's split up.
We're here for drama.
Absolutely, we are here for the drama. And this leads us into the things that I love about the system. So, which I nearly went into before because I'm in an unstructured ramble today. As if I'm ever any other way. The things I love about Blades in the Dark are how improvisational it is for everybody. So, as the game master, you obviously have to construct the world and you need to have a general idea of where you're going. But it's not a stat up some monsters, run an encounter type of deal like you would in D&D. It's not that structured. It's far more free flow. And constantly in Blades in the Dark, you have the option as a player to just turn to your GM and say, by the way, I have this. And there's several ways that this happens. So, obviously, as I said, the game is broken into several phases. The first, obviously, is your preparation phase, which very much is just role play through the world and the setting and what's happening. Up until you get to the point where you're about to jump off the cliff. At which point your GM says, right, okay, we've done enough planning. We're going now. You roll your encounter roll, or
engagement.
I can't remember what it's called. Engagement. There we go. My words, as always today, are on point. You roll your engagement roll. You get, depending on the type of score you are planning. So there's a variety of different types of score. Be it a stealth infiltration, be it an assault, be it transportation, be it a kind of social shindig type thing. You decide what type you're going for, and then you get pluses and minuses in terms of the number of dice you get to roll. You roll it, that decides how you start. And you could start abysmally. You could roll a 3 on your engagement roll and just absolutely fuck the opening. And the players just have to roll with it. They just have to they just have to be like, how do I talk my way out of this? How do I anything my way out of this? Like if we, say, I've probably got a bunch of examples in the book that I could have used and I didn't. So I'm just going to pull this out my ass. But say we're going to do a social heist.
Yeah.
So, or a social kind of event. There's a grand party and we need to get information from one person who we're meeting at the party. That's the plan. So our four criminals, are coming in. We get a dice for, you start with at least one dice for sheer fuckwittery. You get another dice because you know somebody at the party. You lose in fact, maybe you gain another dice because this is hitting them where they're weakest. The enemy doesn't know that you're going to be there. There's a real kind of, thing. So maybe you're rolling 3d6. And you roll a 1 and 2 2s.
And this is what the planning phase is about, is trying to give yourself as many opportunities to build up those dice as possible so that your engagement roll is potentially better.
Absolutely. And I think that's the risk as a GM with Blades in the Dark, is giving too much prep time. Because as we're going to get into later, the prep time isn't isn't necessarily to plan for every possible occurrence. In fact, that's really not what it's for. It's absolutely not for that. But what it is there for is to give you the best engagement roll and to give you a focus for the group for this heist, for this score. And when you've got that focus and you've got everybody kind of on the same page and you've rolled your dice, if it goes wrong, you as the GM have to decide how it's gone wrong. You also need to decide what happens if it goes right, but there's a little something goes wrong. What happens if it goes perfectly? And then you just have to roll with it, and the players just have to roll with it. Every time they do something that is dice roll worthy, you just got to roll with it. And the consequences can be so wild and varying, which is phenomenal. And as it happens, say for instance, in this instance, we've rolled, they've gotten the 2, we get there, and because they've absolutely fucked it, one of the party is recognized by one of the guards on the door who goes, "Oi, you're a criminal." And that player has several options available to them. They can just try and roll to get round it. They could, take the guy out. They could try and talk their way around it. But they have additional weapons at their arsenal. The first is your load. So, one of the things that every player decides going into their score is their load, which means how much gear are you taking. You don't decide the gear, you just decide the quantity. So you go light, medium, or heavy. 3 options. Each one, obviously, light, and they all have role play connotations as well. Heavy means you've got big bags on you. Like medium, you're looking kind of like armored up. Light, you're just out there, like in a jacket. You can carry what you can carry in your 2 pockets.
Yeah, because
it's kind of about somebody's suspicion. Gone. Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's going to look twice at some guy in a 3-piece suit, but if you're rocking up to a party with 2 duffel bags and an armored vest, people are going to think something's up.
Absolutely. But also, if a player, that happened, and, say the player's a whisper, and, they're like, they've gone in light, they're in a 3-piece suit, this guy on the door goes, "Hey, I know you. I've seen your wanted poster." Whisper can turn around to me and say, "I take off a box of load, and I pull out a spirit bottle. Inside that spirit bottle is a ghost whom I found, who is a real bastard, who is going to absolutely ruin these 2 guys' day, and we're going to go into this party loud now." And they can just do that. They can just say, "I take off a box of load, and this is what that box of load was." And they have full creative freedom to pick that, as long as they can justify it to me. Yeah. The other thing that they can do, which is one of the other kind of really great improvisational weapons in the Blades in the Dark creative arsenal, is that the Whisper could also go, "Flashback, that guard knows me because we went to school together, and I know where his mother lives."
So you can pull the old Irish trick of, "I know your mommy."
Exactly. You can just be like, "Yes, you do," and you turn around and go, "Yes, you do know me, and how is Doris?" And like, that's a sudden dynamic shift. Now, you can't obviously do any of these things you can't do any of these things just infinitely. With the load, you have a limited number of boxes of load to tick off. Like, you can't say, "I carry in a tank." It's what can you conceivably carry in a place, and how much space does that take up? And with flashbacks, depending on the complexity of the flashback, you take stress.
What is stress?
Now,
I know this is I know that's a question that you and I absolutely should know the answer to, because we're both creatives. But in the context of Blades in the Dark, what is stress?
Stress is your key resource for doing things dangerous in Blades in the Dark. So, there's a limit to what a body can take. And that equates to something like 9 or 10 stress points. I can't remember what it is. I'll double check. And basically, if you want to do something in Blades in the Dark that is above and beyond just a normal roll, you take stress. So you have the option, you can have a flashback to say, actually, I did this, and I can go, okay, that's pretty simple. Take 1 stress, that's absolutely fine. Or you can do something really complicated, such as, I think there's a bit in Oxventure Presents Blades in the Dark, which is a wonderful campaign run by Luke Westaway, where I think at one point one of the players goes, actually, flashback, I bought this house. My grandparents bought the land that this house lives on, and everything here actually is owned by my family, so actually I can do this.
That sounds like something Barnaby would
like
do.
Yeah, exactly. Like a 3-generation back flashback that turned the entire situation and was genius. But like, you would take a lot more stress for that. You know, you would take 2 or 3 points of stress for that because it's a really big thing. And it, you know, somewhat complicated. Again, that's at the GM's discretion. Other things you can do is on any action that you have to roll for, any at all, you can push yourself, which means taking, I think it's 2 stress to push yourself.
Stress.
1 stress. 1 stress. You take 1 point of stress and you add a die to your roll. And that's always an option. One of the key things in Blades in the Dark, as it says in the book, is that because you are all career criminals, like, well, even if you're kind of new at this, like, no one in Blades in the Dark is useless. All right? Maybe you are a specialist, you know, like, you are a leech who does demo. You're like, I blow shit up, and I maybe sometimes build robots. That's my whole gig. But you can still punch someone. You can still talk your way out of a situation. These are skills you have, and there are always options to add dice to your roll. Like, no one is just shit. Alright? If you've got no points in a skill, you roll 2 dice and you take the lowest result. But you can always push yourself to make that roll 1 dice, take the result. You can also take what's called a devil's bargain. Now, a devil's bargain, which is the other main way to add dice to your roll, is where I, as the GM, get to say to you, basically, if you go, Chris, this guard's recognized me, I really want to lamp him, but I know there's a bunch of people there, and I'm not normally like a fighter. I've got 1 dice. I'm going to push myself to take 2, but I really want this to work. So can I take a devil's bargain to get a 3rd dice? And I go, absolutely. In exchange for this dice, though, if you succeed in this roll and knock these guys out, then the consequence, the payoff of the devil's bargain, what I get from it, is that this guy's mother that you know knows what you did to her son and knows it was you, and what that's going to look like later down the line, I'm not going to tell you, but you know it's going to be bad because you know his ma, and his ma's going to fuck you up. So it can be little things like that, or it can be bigger things. You know, I want to invent rocket boots. Okay, you get an extra dice to that, but they're gonna blow off a leg. You know, you can go as crazy as you want with it, and people, you know, people get the choice. You know, and if it fails, well, that's a whole other thing.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. So again, there's always risk with anything, but there's always options to add more dice. You know, you can absolutely load things as much in your favor as possible, and you've got every option to do that until you kill yourself.
Let's talk a bit more about that risk. Because from the way you kind of described it so far, it sounds like stress is a really useful resource. But it's called stress. So what happens when you get too much of it? Like you said, there's only so much a body or a mind can take. What happens when you push yourself beyond that limit of stress?
Trauma!
Hey, ever wanted to have a mental breakdown in an RPG? We've got a mechanic for that.
We do, in fact. So, when a PC marks their last stress box, they suffer a level of trauma. When you take trauma, you get to choose one of the various traumatic conditions available to the character. And that's with you forever.
Yeah, that's just a part of your character.
That is, this is just a whole, this is just a thing. It's delightful. The trauma conditions include cold, you're not moved by emotional appeals or social bonds. Haunted, you're often lost in reverie, reliving past horrors and seeing things. Obsessed, you're enthralled by one thing, an activity, a person, an ideology. Paranoid, you imagine danger everywhere and you can't trust others. Reckless, you have little regard for your own safety or best interests. Soft, you lose your edge, you become sentimental, passive, and gentle. Unstable, your emotional state is volatile. You can instantly rage or fall into despair, act impulsively, or freeze up. Vicious, you seek out opportunities to hurt people, even for no good reason.
Yeah.
And that's just there. It's traumatic conditions are permanent, right? Like that's just, it doesn't go away. You can retire them if you're like, nah, this guy's now too traumatized, but like you can't cure it. Stress you can relieve. Bodily harm you can relieve, but trauma's there for good. No amount of therapy gonna save you in this game.
Stress can be relieved. Trauma is forever.
Well, you got to remember that realistically, the best therapy they had in these days was vibrators.
That's not true, by the way.
What? The one for treating hysteria with orgasms?
Yeah, that's not true.
Really?
Really?
I have a feeling you're wrong, and I'm only going to say that because I know someone whose doctorate in psychology involved publishing a book on hysteria. I haven't read said book, but tell me the thing.
I have it from the mouth of Dr. Esme Louise James, the one who does the Kinky History channel.
Nice.
Who does fascinating stuff, basically on like.
I mean, that's a person to listen to. Yeah.
Sex and sexual psychology throughout the ages. The vibrators thing is not true.
Damn, that's so upsetting.
Yeah, the prescription of orgasms to deal with the prescription of orgasms to deal with hysteria is kind of true, but it was the idea of go home and fuck your husband.
But I thought specifically this was the period of time where the fucking was not great because the beds could kill you.
No. The vibrators as a more commonly held sexual device wasn't actually a thing until the 1960s.
I mean, that makes sense. You know, how else are you going to get all that good good battery operated fun?
You know how the Hitachi wand is always kind of branded as a back massager. That's what vibrators originally were. They were a common household appliance used for like back and neck massages. I highly recommend you look at the video because it's a long one, so I haven't got time to do it here because we're talking about Blades in the Dark, not vibrators.
But you can have vibrators in your Blades in the Dark. I'm not here to stop you.
It's a TTRPG. You can have what you want.
Well, say, not a bad segue though. Talking about like dealing with trauma and health. One of the other things again, talking about the risk, healing in Blades in the Dark is rough. Like, it is not a game that... So, we've talked a bit about your prep phase. We've talked a bit about the heist itself, the score, as it's referred to in the book. The third phase of play is your downtime actions. Your post-score, kind of divvying up your loot, reconciling, and relieving stress. Now, during your downtime, you get to take 2 downtime actions. And this can be to relieve stress, to pursue a long-term project, or to start trying to heal from any, twisted ankles or broken ribs. Now, what happens is, you get these lovely progress clocks for basically most things that you do, which is a nice, simple way of keeping track of this is all the things that's going on. So if you've got a healing clock, you fill in a number of segments for, how good your roll is. Now you can improve that roll by getting assets, adding, kind of making contact with doctors and physicians and these types of things, getting some real good drugs, and that's one of the other things you can do with your downtime is acquire an asset, or make a connection. But generally speaking, when you are healing injuries, you're ticking off one section at a time. Like it's not a lot. So yeah, it could easily take you, an injury that you get from one score could easily take you 4 sessions to recover from.
Yeah, these characters are superhuman slightly, but they're not, like you said, there's no point in Blades in the Dark where you are a god. You're not hitting like every adventurer in D&D is some level of superhuman. Like you're not sleeping off getting nearly murdered in 8 hours. Like that's not a thing in Blades in the Dark. You are carrying these injuries. Yep. And when you're relieving stress, if you've gone through a lot of it, you might not necessarily relieve all of it because that is still a dice roll.
Yep. And you can overindulge in your vices to relieve your stress. And if you overindulge, not only do you not reduce any of the stress, you suffer a consequence.
Yep. Even healing in Blades in the Dark is a gamble, where the odds are stacked against the player.
It is rough. And again, there are abilities and things you can use to modify that and moderate that. It's a game that absolutely encourages teamwork in terms of its abilities and the way the characters are structured. Again, which is very important. But yeah, you can absolutely just ruin your fucking life very easily in Blades in the Dark. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a hell of a game. It's again a very RP heavy, and not necessarily like rules light, but all of the rules are very explicitly there to serve the role playing.
Yes.
Rather than to have it doesn't really have that kind of nitty gritty war game origin that something. I know we're using D&D as the yardstick here because it's the TTRPG that everybody knows.
Yeah,
but it doesn't really have that kind of get into the fine details of how you're gonna knife someone in the ribs.
Again, this is why I think it's a little closer to something like City of Mist, where, you know, it's more like decide what it is you want to do, pick the thing you want to use to do it, and then roll. So one of the explicit parts of Blades in the Dark is that the GM doesn't choose what stat you roll. Ostensibly. You, the player, tell me, the GM, I would like to roll Wreck to punch this guy. You know, like, Wreck is not the only stat that could be used to punch someone. But if you can convince me, then absolutely, we can roll Wreck. And that's fun.
While you can kind of choose any stat, there are, like, sort of general vibes that each of the kind of stats are meant to go for.
Yes. So command is to compel swift obedience. Consort, to socialize with friends and contacts. Finesse, you employ dexterous manipulation or subtle misdirection. Hunt, to carefully track a target. Prowl, to traverse skillfully and quietly. Skirmish, to entangle a target in close combat. Study, to scrutinize details and interpret evidence. Survey, to observe a situation and anticipate outcomes. Sway, to influence with guile, charm, or argument. Tinker, to fiddle with devices and mechanisms. Wreck, to unleash savage force. So, and attune, to attune your mind to the arcane. So, like, some of those are quite specific. There are some there which you're like, realistically, that refers specifically to this. Yeah. But there are others where a couple of powers could be used interchangeably in situations. And in those kind of things, you can say to your GM, you know, I would like to roll this because, you know, and it could, you know, and it's things like, you know, like in an encounter, you know, we're at the door to the party again. I would like to knock these guys out. You could absolutely roll skirmish, or you could roll wreck. Or you could flashback, say, I brought flashbang grenade that I built myself. I might say, you know, and I might say, roll me tinker for the efficacy of the flashbang. Or if you're, you know, an established inventor, I'd be like, that's simple enough, go for it. But, like, that's a lot of different options then for what you could roll to incapacitate these guys, depending how you want to do it. And again, that's part of the creative freedom of the system.
Very little, like, there's a lot of thinking outside the box. In fact, to play Blades in the Dark properly, very little is actually happening in the box. All of it is it's thinking in oblique ways to try and get round and into this thing.
Yes. Which doesn't mean you can't just barge through. You can absolutely barge through if you want to.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to deck a motherfucker.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's you've got the different stats, your different things. It's all good. It's such a good system. I really like it.
I'm excited to play.
And it's very balanced. So, obviously I said, you know, Blades in the Dark, at no point are you ever a god. Part of that is also involved in how unusual it is to level up in Blades in the Dark. So, unlike something like... I think we're like... No, we're not even halfway. So, it's not like D&D where you go levels 1 to 20 and you scale everything up, gain new abilities, and gain points in things up to great level. Nor is it like City of Mist, where it's entirely themed around the story and your character progression decides how your abilities change and mold. This is more a growth is incredibly hard won and hard fought for. There is an XP system that you can use if you like an XP system.
You can also milestone it if you want to do that way at specific points in the campaign. It's entirely up to yourself. But essentially, what happens when you gain a level in Blades in the Dark is the characters get to add an ability. So they start with 4 action points and an ability. 4?
Yeah,
Something
4.
like that.
One from your ancestry, one from your hair, one from your background, and then 2 you can just do whatever the fuck you like with.
Yes. And you get a special ability. And like that's it. 1 special ability, 4 points to put into all of the stats that I mentioned. And that's your starting. You level up, you get to add a point. I think it's a point. I will double check. And you get to add an ability. It might be 2 points. But it's a slow progression. And it caps out pretty early. Like each, you're realistically, it's not built for the idea that at some point you're going to collect all of the abilities. You can, but each class, essentially only has, gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you're gonna hit you're gonna hit max level essentially at 7 when you have all of the abilities, and that's still like not really something one would aim for. Like it's not really in keeping with the game. And again, that's not all classes have 7s. That was also I picked the Hound. It has 7 abilities. The Leech has 8.
Yeah, it's that sort of like if your character survives this long, because this is not necessarily a game where you are the heroes who will best your way through every challenge and survive every encounter. No. The threat of being killed, turned into a ghost, and possibly stuffed into a tin can is very real.
Yep. So it's that. Yeah, you're here for a good time, not a long time. And part of that is again reflected in the progression for your character. Because I can't be arsed keeping track of XP, I'm almost certainly just going to do milestones, and we'll see when they come.
Love milestones.
Absolutely. It also means everybody gets to do it together, which is nice.
In this house, we do milestone.
In this house, we milestone. So, it's not just because we're control freaks who demand to decide exactly when our players get access to the shiny things.
I mean, I know why I do it in D&D, and it's simply because that's just too much damn math!
God damn, it is. So much math.
It's so much math. I just want to roll the click-clacks.
So much math. Yeah, it's like it's not even like good and exciting math. It's just adding lots and lots of numbers, which is basic and boring.
There's also like multiplications in D&D for like CR and stuff. And
yeah,
as we have established on all of on all of the monsters we've made on our previous homebrew streams, CR is a bitch to calculate.
It's such a vibes concept, like such a vibes concept.
And often the vibes are wrong.
Yes, I have to say that I am not always confident that the things we have made are balanced in a way that would be sensible.
I know, I'm talking about the original. I'm talking about the official stuff. Remember, shadows are a CR1 creature.
What does a shadow do again?
So remember the shadow assassins you guys fought in the last session?
Yes.
That, but smaller.
Those were not fun.
Yeah, still has the power to drain your strength down to 0, so you're not even strong enough to inflate your own lungs.
Which is ridiculous for a CR1 monster.
Yeah, it's fucked.
Goddamn. So yeah, jobs are good. So yeah. Well, in fact, if we're going to talk about that, then let's talk a little bit more about combat.
Yeah, let's talk about combat. Let's talk about what kind of antagonists you're likely to face in Blades in the Dark. Because while we do, like, you know, we've talked about spirits and ghosts and things that go bump in the night, but also there are other criminals out there. There's the law. There's whatever guards that the fancy man you're stealing the shit from has hired. There is so much to work with there.
Absolutely. And actually, again, in the base game, so not what I'm doing, because I have to be different. I can't not.
We homebrew
it's just
in this
part
house.
of my genes. Yeah, we do homebrew in this house, often to our detriment, but yes, we do homebrew in this house. There is a whole chapter called the faction game, which is essentially just the discussion of what the different groups you're dealing with look like, and also how you struggle against them, because again, you are a criminal gang, you are an enterprise. You get to set up, you know, you get much like in City of Mist, you get to have a car, you know, like a crew type for your group. You know, so you can get bonuses and so on from what type of crew you are, which benefit you. But similarly, there are a bunch of others, you know, and they're all also fighting for the same space, because you are in a sealed city. There is a finite resource, and that finite resource is real estate in the city. It is space. It is what does your gang own, control, and protect. And you don't have to play this game in a take over the whole city type of way. But still, if you walk the streets of this city, every street you walk is owned by someone. And therein lies risk and danger.
We're all just crabs in a bucket.
Absolutely. So, this, in terms of the way that this describes it, we talk about tiers of gangs, so what size they are. We can also indicate the strength of their hold. Hold represents how well a faction can maintain their current position on the ladder. So they can have a weak hold, they can have a strong hold. And, you know, kind of like a size and so on. Hello, puppy. There's a Lyra here.
Puppy!
Hello, my darling. There's a goodest girl here.
She's not a criminal.
She fucking is a criminal. She's a thieving wee bastard, aren't you? Aren't you? Yes, you are. You would take over a whole city if you wanted to, wouldn't you? Yes, you would. She is a precious, precious arsehole.
So, yeah, just to kind of bring it back to the comparisons to our previous campaign. So,
yeah,
while it's not explicitly a part of City of Mist, you know, we had things like the Cult of Cards, we had Don Caligari's gang, we had like the Round Table and the Court of Miracles. Like, you had these factions within the city that had their turf and how they ran things.
Absolutely. I know. He's good. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's that is baked into the fabric of Blades in the Dark.
Oh, good, because I have to make that shit up. There's actual mechanics now.
Yeah, like it is meant to be a struggle between, and you can engage with each of the mechanics in this game as much or as little as you like. If you're gonna do like a years long, really technical game of Blades in the Dark, a lot of your job as the GM is the management of the world and the environment through things like the faction game. That's a lot of your job in terms of prep and management. There's a lot less, you know, like fine-tuning of encounters and so on, like you would in Dungeons and Dragons. And there's a lot. I'm not sure what the equivalent would be in City of Mist. But for Blades in the Dark, a lot of it is this managing of the world that the players are in. So again, with the faction game, you get examples of a chart and so on, and keeping track of who owns what, whose turf is which, reputation of the different gangs, how strong their hold on a particular area is, the size of it, the faction status, which indicates how well your crew are liked or hated by any given group. So you're keeping track of your crew's relationships with the different gangs, because they don't all have to be enemies. Some of them can be your friends. And if they're your friends, they can help you with stuff, and you can gain additional bonuses when engaging with them or engaging with their enemies. So again, that you can make that really complicated and involved and in depth if you want to. Like if you are the type of DM whose brain lights up at like nitty gritty planning and like making numbers go burr and flowcharts, then you can find a lot to love in Blades of the Dark. But also, if you're a bit more like me and you're more of a go with the flow improvisational DM who doesn't necessarily always do the most detailed prep work, then there's still also a lot to love in this game, because the structure of the actual heists themselves is very fluid. So it's that I do like that about the system. Like there is kind of something, I think, for most people in this, in terms of running this game. Like there are things to love regardless of what type of GM you are. As a player, obviously, I think the rules and the structure gives you a lot of license. But again, I think as a GM, like there's a lot on your shoulders to decide what kind of world it is you want to make, how you want to run it, and how detailed you want to be. And I think that's great. Yeah. Here's I found the XP tracker. Oh man, this was, yeah. Basic again. Oh man. Dear me, trying to remember what how much XP does it take to level up a character? Yeah, like 1 XP for some stuff, 2 XP for some other stuff. XP track. When you fill an XP track, clear all the marks, take an advance. When you take an advance from your player track, you can choose an additional special ability. When you take an advance for an attribute, you can add an additional action dot to one of the actions of that attribute. Oh wow! So actually, technically, in like rules as written, Blades in the Dark, you can have an action dot or an ability.
Yeah, it is sparse with its level up stuff.
It is grindy.
So one last thing, because I feel we're not going to hit the 10 o'clock mark.
We might not, yeah.
With this. I have to ask, Chris, why are we talking about Blades in the Dark this week?
Well, Jonathan, as it so happens, next week...
Not next week.
In theory, next week. Not next week. The week after. Not next week, but the week after, we are going to be running a Blades in the Dark campaign where I'm going to GM!
Woo!
Yay!
Hell yeah!
We will have returning players from the City of Mist campaign that we ran previously. And basically it's my turn to run the game and for Jay to play.
I gotta be a player!
So, absolutely. So we're going to have 3 players. We're going to have me. We're going to have great fun time. My technology might work. We'll find out.
We can only
yeah, I know, we can only dream. It's going to be a good old time. But yes, I have created my own homebrew world. 'Cause pain. We have a book, we have some players, we have just the makings of a rip-roaring good time. And who knows, I might even learn how to make Foundry work. It's going to be great.
We're here for a good crime, not a long crime.
So much crime.
Yeah, the fact that in our last stream in Baldur's Gate, we've begun using the phrase "Let's go murdering."
We have become heavy murder, heavy crime.
This is where we're getting our crime on.
Yeah, in case you hadn't noticed, we just need more crime.
Need more crime. More crimes!
More crime!
More crimes!
More crime? More crime.
Not war crimes, but more crimes.
Not war crime. More crimes. So yes, if you enjoyed City of Mist, then come watch us play Blades in the Dark. If you haven't seen City of Mist, go watch it. The whole thing's on YouTube. It's great. Maybe one day when we're rich and famous, we'll pay someone to edit it so it's a little bit shorter. But realistically, it's phenomenal. We had the best fucking time. I had the most tragic character death of everything. It was stunning. Jonathan is a phenomenal DM, and you should look him up and watch him do things.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, that feels like a really nice segue into the where to find us, Jay.
Well, Chris, on that particular topic, I am going to, in the month of November, start running games on startplayinggames.com. So if you want to actually experience my DMing style, I will be running D&D sessions twice a week on Start Playing Games, starting in November. I got a couple of interesting things. I got a long-running campaign planned. I got some one-shots planned, but things will expand into bigger and greater TTRPG empires. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that soon. But Absolutely. You can also find us on various social medias. You can find me on Twitter at JonathanHoney4, although to be fair, pretty much the only thing I ever post is the announcements for these streams. Speaking of the announcements for these streams, you can also join our Discord, because we have a fucking Discord now. After a great deal of requesting and me agonizing over its various systems, because man, I use that thing, I don't run that thing. Yeah, it'll be in the bio of this stream. Hopefully that works this time. If you're watching it later, It's in the description of the YouTube video. I made sure this time.
Good.
Yeah, you can follow my games company, All the Alliance Games, at AULD_games on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and outside your window right now. I promise we're making things. We are doing stuff. It's just taking us a little bit of time to get back into the rhythm of things.
I say they're independent and they all have jobs. Like, it's hard making games.
Yeah, being a part-time game developer is fucking hard, dude. But we got to keep the lights on.
Yep. It's grim. Speaking of grim, you can find me on Instagram at ChrisHoneyActor. I don't have anything else going on. I've just got this. So, love me and adore me. It's a good time.
Perceive him!
Perceive me, if you dare!
Perceive him!
But mostly, come and perceive us playing Blades in the Dark.
We promise it'll be a good crime.
It's going to be such a good crime. But yeah, and that'll be, you get to see me GMing. I am a little different from Jay in the way that I GM, so you get to see different flavors. Jay's played in one campaign that I've run, which was a very chaotic D&D campaign.
Yeah.
Which actually I was talking. We were having dinner with a bunch of people from the campaign the other day, and we were chatting away about it and reliving some of the wildest moments.
I'm sad I
including. It's all right. I was gonna say you were much judged for not being there. No, it's fine, Jay. It's fine. Everybody appreciates you live on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, come watch Blades in the Dark and the sick, twisted shit that's in my mind.
Hell yeah. We will not be around next week, as I am going to be doing my sort of biannually hiding from the government. Chris might do a solo stream. He might not. He probably won't.
I mean,
I have access to the internet now, so I could. I don't know if it will go well. But I can.
You might get to see Chris playing Pokemon Coliseum again, or maybe something else. Who knows?
I re-downloaded that totally legitimate version of Pokemon Coliseum.
Yes.
So
totally
actually,
legitimate, Nintendo.
I might do that. Totally legitimate. Please don't sue us. So actually, that might be really good fun. I might do that.
Yeah.
If people want to watch me play Pokemon and chat shite.
Yeah. But yeah, we've managed to get it set up so Chris can run the streams now. So we will hopefully be a bit more consistent with things.
I have an, in theory, functional PC.
It worked fine for the last Baldur's Gate thing. Oh yeah, also we're streaming twice a week now.
We stream on Fridays.
Yeah, we stream on Fridays now. Chris and I are playing. We will be basically, the idea is that Mondays will be our traditional TTRPG Pokemon kind of chat shite, hangout, whatever kind of streams, and Fridays will be video games because we like video games.
Yes.
At the moment, we are playing Baldur's Gate 3, and oh my god, we're already committing so many crimes.
So many crimes.
If you would like to
it's
see...
a great time. I'm really tall and he's really short.
I was going to say, if you'd like to see the adventures of the Amazonian Shion and Rambling Kevin, then yeah, tune in on Fridays, 7 p.m. British Standard Time, or whatever fucking time zone we're on at the moment.
I've got a dinosaur.
Yeah, he's got a dinosaur. I've got a death wish. Let's go. Let's fucking go. Yeah, we're going to be playing Baldur's Gate 3.
It's going to be such a good time.
And we might dip into some other games like Warframe, or maybe might check out Divinity Original Sin 2, because I now own that game. So we'll see.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that kind of wraps us up here. Do you have any final words you'd like to say on Blades in the Dark, Chris?
No.
Fair enough. Bye, everyone!
Bye!